Welcome to episode 74 of Stageworthy. I'm your host, Phil Rickaby. Stageworthy is a podcast featuring conversations in Canadian theatre with actors, directors, playwrights, and more. If you want to drop me a line to tell me what you think or to suggest somebody I should really talk to, you can find Stageworthy on Facebook and Twitter at StageworthyPod, and you can find the website at stageworthypodcast.com. If you like the podcast, I hope you'll consider leaving a comment or rating on Apple Podcasts or Google Music or wherever you get your podcasts. Ratings and comments really help people find Stageworthy. My guest, Luke Reece, is a storyteller, community builder, and artist-educator. Luke is the Apprentice General Manager and Resident Artist-Educator at Young People's Theatre, co-creator of Dark Nights, captain of the 2017 Toronto Poetry Slam team, and was the Associate General Manager of Obsidian Theatre Company. Luke is also the Artistic Director of Little Black Afro Theatre. Little Black Afro is currently seeking proposals for its Emerging Artist Program for 2017. You can find details at littleblackafro.com. What are you doing at Young People's Theatre?
I'm doing a Metcalf internship.
Okay.
I'm doing it in general management, so I'm working there with Nick Tracy, their Associate General Manager, and Nancy Webster, their Executive Director.
Okay. And what is arts administration something you're interested in, or is it like a means to an end for you?
No, I think it's definitely something I'm interested in. I'm slowly discovering more and more how much I like it, and but also what parts I like, and what parts I don't like. I think it started administration because I just started producing my own work, and then I just had to know how this stuff was gonna happen.
That's what happens,
right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I guess I have to do this, so I need to learn how to do contracts and how to manage a budget and make sure we are aware of our spending and everything, and so it started as that, and then it led to some jobs, it led to some interesting relationships with some other artists, and I was like, you know what, I like this, and I like being the on the producing end, I like being the person who's out talking to people, and who's like making those connections and bringing people together. I love that.
What part, like when you're talking about bringing people together like that, is that just like you're bringing sponsors in, you're bringing what people are you bringing together?
Whatever kind of people I need. When it started with just finding people who wanted to create with me, right? Finding a team of people who I liked, who I respected, and who respected me and my work, and then everything from that to people just coming up to me and being like, people in the community, like this is this is what I want to do. Yeah. Do you have any people in mind that could do that? Right. And then I'm like, here are all these people. Nice. So I like to meet people so that way I have people to offer to these other people. But then also bringing in sponsors and like talking to people about the work that I do and what the other people do, and getting conversations going and getting people excited, getting audiences excited. There's a joke now at YPT where I've realized that I say a lot that I am excited or like that's exciting in response to different things. So now Nick will be like, "Oh, really? Is that exciting? Because that must be so exciting." So now I try to say it more. Of course. But I think I'm a bit of a hype man for some shows, for some work, and for some people in that sense.
You mentioned that you started down this road because you started self-producing.
Yeah.
Everybody self-producing. Now, when I was in theater school, they never talked about self-producing.
You're like, don't do it.
They still don't do it. I still that a lot of theater schools don't talk about self-producing very much, or they might touch on it, but they never prepare you.
Yeah, there's a couple. I went to York, and there was a course at York I took called, I think it was just called Theater Management.
Fuck. That's gold.
No, it was great. It's a third-year course, and it's not mandatory. You can either take Theater Management, which is a third-year course, or Career Management, which was a fourth-year course, I believe. And it was it was described to us that, like, oh, career management is the one for actors, and theater management is the one for people who want to do other things. So I took theater management, and I did it the summer after doing, the year after doing the Summer Works program SLIP, that now exists in different ways and is more of a platform than the program it was in 2013, I think was the year I did it, where I got a little taste of producing, and it was meant for emerging producers at that time, and I think I was the youngest in that year, and I got to meet so many artists in the community, and every day we did a different little seminar. We had fundraising, how to deal with the media, touring, what it means to be an artistic director, grants, budgeting, everything. Just a little bit of a taste, and I was like, okay, this is it. Like, I'm getting my feet wet. And then the next year I took theater management, and I felt like I had almost already done that course within the span of 2 weeks at SummerWorks, and then went and nailed that class. But even still, it was just like having the opportunity to practice those skills in an environment where, you know, it's fake money. So there's no real risk involved in that class, which was nice. And the whole thing at the end of the class, you have to submit like an OAC grant at the end of it, and like you need to have like your company and your slogan, or your mandate slogan, and then your what your plan was for the season as well, and and I was working with Little Black Afro Theater as my company, which is a collective that I had been working with at that point for, I think we've been around for just 2 years, maybe not even, year and a half, and eventually used this same or similar grant application for that project for the OAC, and got that grant my first summer out of school.
How do you, I'm curious, and maybe you don't know, like, how do you grade somebody's OAC without being the OAC panel? Like, how do you even grade
How
that?
do you do that? And we even had to, like, print everything, and it was, like, because that was before, like, 'cause now it's OAC.
Oh, now
it's Nova.
Thank goodness.
Because I had to print so many copies, and, like, I love the OAC very much, and they funded us, and it was fantastic. But no, that assignment too, I was like, how do you
grade that? That's like my question. Like, do you?
Right, I got an A, so I guess that means I got the grant, and then in real life I got the grant, so I was like, that's pretty good.
It works out well,
right? So the grading scheme, I guess, wasn't far off from whoever was on the jury that year.
Yeah, in terms of you said you were starting to self-produce. Was there a particular reason why you wanted to self-produce, or was it just like that's the path that you wanted to go on? Or
it was my the summer after first year, so I just did a year of university, and I was like all pumped, and I met all these cool people, and I learned so much, and I just like realized that I could do better work than what I was doing in high school. I was like, whoa! And I was in high school. I thought I hit my peak. I thought that was it. I can't get any better than grade 12 Cedars Festival. Yeah. And then after first New York, I was like, no, I learned some things. Yeah. And I wanted to try it out. I wanted to rewrite an old piece. I wanted to do more work. And I didn't see any options for me. I think that was the problem, is I got out of first year, and I was like, okay, but like I don't want to wait until September to come back to school and do things. Like, I want to do things now. Yeah. And then a friend of mine saw that in me, one of my best friends, who's not involved in theater at all, and he went to a different high school, and he's very much like a tech kind of businessy guy. So he came up to me and he was like, hey, like, what if we just self-produce? Like, I'll make the website, I'll do all the designs, we'll do like a business plan, and we'll just do something this summer. Yeah. And my first thought was like, you're an idiot, Ryan. Like, I don't like, I'm working 2 jobs, coaching a soccer team, when am I gonna do this? And then I was like, no, yeah, that could be cool. And he came up with the name Little Black Afro too. The idea was that because we were in Mississauga, and we were going to produce it in Mississauga, and he's like, some people might recognize you, or like know your work from like Meadowvale, and we were trying to use it to bring in people who might recognize my hair, which is really, and then it just stuck, and now it's just a fun thing. So I guess it started from like this. I wanted to do it, and I didn't know where, and I think a lot of companies out there offer programs for you once you're out of school. Because, like, while you're in school, like, yeah, like, school will deal with you. And then when you get out of school and, like, maybe you've learned some things or you've had some experiences, then I think some of the theater companies want to take you on. And I know that there are programs out there for people in high school and still in school, but I just didn't know. I wasn't told that in the first year. Nobody came in and outlined that for me, which, would have been
when
nice.
I was in theater school, they didn't want us working. In between like first and second year, they were like, they would have really discouraged that. I think. During I think they just didn't want us picking up anything from outside of.
Did you do a conservatory?
I did.
See, because the conservatory at York had the same rule. It was like, you don't do anything.
Yeah.
Because you're ours.
Yeah.
But I did playwriting and devised theater, and I guess they were like,
oh, they're a little more.
They're like, do whatever. But not like I don't know if I would have listened if they said to not do it.
We had some people in our class who they didn't listen, and they got like, you shouldn't do that. We're just gonna turn this way, So they were able to do it, but I think they definitely weren't happy about it.
Yeah, and I think there's a benefit to really closing yourself off and focusing on one thing, because you get so good at that one thing, but then you just come out of it and you have that one thing, and then you're met with other things, and you're like, oh, like if you in rock paper scissors, if you only knew rock, every time you encountered paper in the real world, you'd be like, oh shit, I don't know scissors because they only taught me rock.
Yeah. Really good analogy. When you you formed this company, Black Afro, what was the show that did you even have a show that you wanted to do at the time?
I did. There's the show that I did in grade 12 Sears Festival, and I was like, this is my baby, and it was like the first real play that I wrote, and I wanted to go back and use what I learned and rewrite it and be like, well now what? And I think it could be better.
Yeah.
And my friend also knew that. He'd come and he'd seen the show, so he suggested, like, well, why don't we go back to this? Why don't you do that again? And then that was another way that he won me over, because I was like, okay, yeah, I do want to rewrite that. I do. And then, I just got into the playwriting program at York, so I'm like, I am a playwright, so I can do this.
Of course, yeah.
And then he was like, but that play is kind of sad, so I also want you to write a funny play. And then I was like, okay, and then wrote this terrible... It wasn't terrible. It was hilarious, but there was no point to it. Like little comedy of each of these plays was like 25 minutes long, tops, and they did like a double bill. These two guys who worked in a mail room, and they have this like routine. They're like best friends. How they sort the mail. It's kind of like some slapstick stuff, and then they get this sack, and there's a human being that someone is kidnapped and is trying to mail. But they have a rule that they can't open the mail, so they're like having this moral dilemma where they're like, do we open it or not? And then the guy's like, I heard the sack grunt, and the other one's like, sacks don't grunt, dude. And the play was called Sacks Don't Grunt. And but it was fun, so that's where it came out of. It was, and then the next time we produced two, it was two plays that I had written, and then after that, I was kind of like, I don't know, we did a devised collective piece, because I was doing devised theater at that point in second year, and then there was just something about producing my own work that just got annoying for me, and it felt weird. When I had done the summer works program, when I had taken the class in theater management, I was like, I know these things now, and I also realized that I needed to give my own work more time, and maybe it wasn't ready to just throw up some work. And then with the people that I had around me at the company at the time as well, we decided it was best to just produce other people's work, or like use what we have in our resources and our experience thus far. Which still, like, we acknowledge the fact that we're emerging and we don't know everything, but we know a little bit, and together maybe we could do something cool. So then we started, having calls for submission and developing some pieces and just investing in artists and ideas that we liked.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So one of the things that I often like to find out about is why people choose to go into the theater.
Yeah.
So for you, what was it that sort of drew you in to the theater? When did it start for you?
It started like, I think it started early on, but I didn't acknowledge it until I was in high school. Like, I always liked the spotlight. I liked to perform. When I was a kid, my sister and I would do magic shows at, like, family gatherings. We would have, like, a dance thing, and I would have, like, a little solo dance part when I was, like, 6 years old at, like, family Christmas. Like, I liked performing, and I didn't really know at the time. I was just like, this is cool. And I also liked writing. I liked writing stories. In grade 1, we had to write like a paragraph for this little telling bee book thing they were putting together. And then I wrote like a 2-page thing, but they cut it down to the first paragraph and put it in, and I was pissed because it didn't make sense with the title that they had.
Of course it didn't make sense, yeah.
Because the story was called Blackie Came Back, but in the intro Blackie was a squirrel. In the intro paragraph, it just outlines who the squirrels were. Like, it just, establishes who the characters were. Grade 1 Luke was like, these people need to know about all the squirrels first before they know that he leaves and comes back. But they didn't get to that part, so then it just didn't make sense to the title, and I was pissed. Oh, anyways. Justifiably pissed. Grade 1 pissed. And then I was in a musical in grade 8, and then I was just like, this is just fun. This is fun for me. And I didn't go to an arts high school, because I loved math and I loved science, and I was getting high 90s in both, and that was exciting for me, and it was like pleasing people. And I think what I actually liked was the fact that people were like, oh, you got 98 in math, more than actually being proud of myself for getting like a 98 in grade 9 math, whatever that means to me now. But then my drama teacher recognized that I had a lot of energy and that I was interested in, and kept like pulling me in and try out for this and be a part of this Terry Fox assembly or this school play or Sears or student rights or like everything where she could fit me in. And then I loved it. But it still wasn't even until that grade 12 Sears show that I knew that this was what I wanted to do. I still thought like this was just a fun thing that I'm doing. I'm still taking grade 12 physics. I'm still doing all these things and getting ready to apply for like psych or engineering or numerous things. Yeah. But then that play I wrote the first time, when it was performed before Sears, the Student Rights Festival, which is a festival that's done in the Peel, within the Peel School Board. It's run by that same drama teacher, Wendy Gibbons and Ian Armstrong, who are dear to my heart. And I had the play, and it was a play that came from a very emotional moment in my life. It was inspired by the passing of my grandmother. And my grandfather's response to that, and how he was very loving and just positive with her the entire way. So my whole family was there to see it that night. My grandfather was there, and my aunts, and then the play happened. And afterwards, like, everyone stood up and like applauded, and then like my family was in tears, and it was just like the fact that I could make that happen. And I ended up directing it too, so it was just like my words and my placement of people on a stage could make all those people feel that much emotion. I was like, this is friggin' awesome. Yeah. I was like, this is what I want to make people feel things.
And that was it.
And that was it. And then I just changed my entire path, because this was like when you were applying for schools too. So I was like looking at schools for other things. This was in November. And then I was like, nope. And then was all of a sudden applying to theater school.
What was your path going to be before that moment? Like, what were you thinking that you were going to be doing?
I mean, there was math was a thing. I loved physics. I still like physics a lot. I didn't take the final math course you have to take in grade 12 to go into engineering, because I think like in my mind I knew that I was going to go in a different direction. So like there were certain programs that I thought in grade 11 I wanted, that I ruled out by my choice of courses in grade 12. But so then I was like, no, I'll do psychology, or maybe I'll do biology, and then I'll work my way back into like some hardcore math and science. But it was like, no, I liked theater. I liked being in a room with people, making discoveries, like diving into some text, and it was just like there's also a sense of community and family that I got from that specific show, because we worked on it pretty much all year in grade 12, from the Student Rights Festival in the fall through to the Sears in the winter into the early spring. And it was a great experience. I wanted to keep doing that.
Now I know I've spoken to a number of people who've gone from like the academic, where they were like on an academic path, and then all of a sudden they made that change, and they decided they were going to go into theater. And their families kind of had a moment of like, or some of them are still going through that moment of like
forever in that moment.
Like what happened? You were going to be a scientist or a doctor
Right.
or a professor.
Yeah.
Did you find that, or was your family like, we see what you did there, and you should pursue this?
I think like it like different family members clicked at different times, and I mean even the fact that I went to Meadowvale, which was just the high school that was across the street from where I lived.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't an art school, wasn't a science school. Like I could have gone to Woodlands, which was like the gifted school in Mississauga,
Right.
and a lot of my family was just like they took so much pride in the fact that I could do that was a choice, you know. And they're like, you know, like Woodlands, you go to Woodlands, like da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But I was like, but I just want to, like, all my friends are going to Meadowvale. It's right there. I think I'm still going to be smart at Meadowvale. I'm not going to just turn it, like, you know, there's nothing.
Yeah.
So I chose Meadowvale, and some of my family were there, like, okay, all right, yeah, sure, okay. And then, like I kept getting good grades, and they're like, yeah, awesome, this is fantastic. And then, you know, gradually I'm just doing all these shows, and all of a sudden they're getting invites to all these plays, and they're coming out, and they're seeing it, and they're like, that's fun, that's nice. And then definitely when I made the choice, you know, there were a lot of conversations I had, and like they weren't so like this is wrong. They were just trying to understand it.
Yeah.
Because they also saw how much I was succeeding and how much I liked math, and they were like, but what? Huh?
Yeah.
And I was like, but this is what I want to do. And that final piece in grade 12 that was really connected to the family, I think that helped a lot of them get it. And then in university, you know, as I would every now and then get some kind of like award for work or some kind of milestone, and they would all come out and they would support, and then they would see at the receptions like just people around. They're like, oh, okay, this is becoming a thing.
Yeah.
I think there was a moment where I won a playwriting award through the Arts and Letters Club of Toronto, along with the PGC at the Tom Hendry Awards, and my mom came to that, and a lot of other people in my family came as well. They're always really supportive too. Like they've never just not come. But there's one like with my mom there, and like she was just like seeing all these people and like the building we were in, and I think that was just like. I was like, okay, now she gets it.
Did that happen at the Arts and Letters Club?
Yeah. It was the reception.
That is a fucking impressive building.
It's an impressive building. I think the building helped. I think the building definitely helped. And I think because I saw, like, my mom kind of understand it, then I also took a breath in that moment, and I was like, okay, yeah.
Were there different schools that you were looking at when you were you considering different schools, and did you make the choice of York, or did York choose you?
I think it was a bit of both. I was gonna apply. I went to the Ryerson open house before, and I just did not like the vibe at all for their theater program, and I was turned off entirely by Ryerson. I was like, nope, not even gonna apply.
Yeah.
So I applied to like Guelph and McMaster, like some of the ones that just have not too much of a hands-on kind of, you're going to be in a studio program, but a lot of like theory-based theater courses and programs. And then I applied to Windsor, and then my Windsor audition was going to happen like a couple weeks after my York audition. Went to the York audition. For the York audition, they like take you around the school, and you get to hang out with some of the students that are in their first year. And I just fell in love with the people and with the vibe and with the fact that in first year I got to do everything. Because like, I definitely came into it like I want to be an actor, but like also I want to be a playwright, and also whatever else I could do.
Yeah.
And York was like, you can do all of that in first year, and then you get to decide. And I was like, sweet. So I auditioned with a story about my experience doing my show in grade 12. So I didn't do a monologue. I didn't present a design thing, which you could have done. I just told them about why I wanted to get into theater. And then they like called like not too long after, like, you're in. Didn't even go to my Windsor audition. I called Windsor, was like, sorry, like I'm not gonna go, get the spot somewhere else, whatever. And then I went to York, and I think that was the right school for me. I definitely think it was the right school for me.
There's something about knowing that, like, feeling that you're in the right place.
Yeah.
That really, like, is the right, like, it makes you feel like you're, in the right place.
Yeah.
Like, instead of, like, you know, you're in, like, you knew from the moment you saw it that it was, like, for you. And a lot of people just, like, end up going, you know, who'll take me?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Which works, but to go in knowing that you're in the right place, that you chose that. That's sort of like a great way to start out.
Yeah, I definitely got off on the right foot. I was excited, I was happy, I was like, this is it. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I know it's gonna be awesome. Which is how I approach a lot of things. But
you're excited.
Because I'm excited, because everything's so exciting. I was so excited to go to York. I was excited, but I was also excited to graduate. I was so excited to leave York. As much as I loved the school for me, getting out of there was awesome.
What was it like? By the end, was it like taking too long? Were you done?
In fourth year I didn't take any theater classes.
Okay.
I ended up getting a minor in creative writing alongside my theater major. So my fourth year was a lot of English classes and finishing my gen eds, because I was doing so much theater work outside of school at that point. I was like, I don't need to pay York $1,100 to use their studio and get taught by one person and then do one show at the end of the year that 70 people who I already know are going to see.
Yeah.
When I can use that money and self-produce and, you know, make some connections and find mentors in the community. There was a point, like, I think in third year where I realized that, like, I didn't need York for theater anymore.
Could I just say that a lot of people that I know of, when they're leaving theater school, they're not thinking about finding mentors. That's not a thing that a lot of people consider. Where did that impulse come from for you, that you knew you needed to find some mentors?
York would bring in speakers when we were in first year, and Philip Bacon came in first year, and he did this big talk, and he was like, you know, like, if you want to sit down and have a coffee with me, just send me an email, and he's like, I'm telling you that none of you will do this. And I went, and little first year Luke went up to Philip Bacon after, and I don't know if he remembers this, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. He's like, okay, do it. And I was like, all right. And I went and I put it in my calendar app. I don't forget what I was using at the time, but I remember it crashed because I lost everything, and I was so upset. Which is why I didn't email Philip Bacon, and I didn't see him until I was at the Summerworks doing Slip, and then they kept bringing in all these people, and they give you a mentor for that too. So my mentor was Guillermo Verdecchia. So I was like hanging out with Guillermo over the summer, and then meeting all these other people, and Philip came in, and he was like, you have a good website, Little Black Afro, and I was like starstruck, and I was like, and then I finally messaged Philip, and I was like, hey, and then I emailed like almost every single one of these people that came, and I was like, thanks for coming in, this is something that I liked about what we talked about, and then a lot of them I was like, let's keep in touch, or let's sit down for coffee, and then I think that's when I realized that was an option, because everyone I asked to sit down with was like, yeah. And I was like, wait, what? It's actually, it's okay. And then, like, you know, I just made a lot of friends with people who were artists in the community, and then they just became mentors. So I don't know if I knew that I was looking for a mentor off the top, but I was just looking for people to hear me, people I could learn from, and I guess that's what a mentor is. And I had a lot of good mentors. Just in school, my drama teacher was a great mentor to me, and I'd always lucked out with just having fantastic teachers all the way through elementary school, and even like at work, I worked in retail at Aeropostale for like nearly 6 years. And my manager there, I consider a mentor, and it's like, you know, I open myself up to those kinds of relationships, and I think I find them in those ways.
Yeah, it's funny because you talk about how, you know, you just email these people and say, hey, can we meet? And they all said yes, and that's something that I think a lot of people don't think about even as an option. You were not thinking about it, you did it, and they were like, yeah, sure. I found just doing this podcast that you ask people to talk to you, and they're
like,
yes.
Okay,
yeah. So it's like, it's one of those things you don't think about, but it's there.
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular that you learned? If you can like sum up things that you learned from the people that you became your mentors.
Yeah, you definitely you don't need to know. You don't always need to know exactly what you want to get out of the conversation, but you need to have a pretty good idea. Even if it's just like, hey, like I want you to know me as an artist, and I want to know you and learn more about your work. That's okay. You can meet, but there was, and it's funny because now I'm at YPT, but I met with Alan McInnes because he came in and talked to us. And I remember, and I have to talk to you about this too, but because I wonder if he remembers this, because he probably meets with a lot of people as well. But like, I remember going and sitting down with him, and he was like, so like, what do you want to talk about? Or like, what do you like? What are you wondering about with YPT? And I knew things about young people's theater, but I did not know a lot. I did not know as much as I should have going into that conversation, and I felt like an idiot there. I was like, I don't really know. And then he gave me, an idea of some of the different things that YPT does and how I could get involved with YPT and like volunteering and this and that. And it's also such a big company. Like, there's so many ways to get involved. Yeah. That I was sitting there and I was like, and it was like a very brief kind of a conversation, and then at the end of it, he's like, well, we can chat again when you have a better idea of what you're looking for, or what because I felt like an idiot. I went home, and I was still in Mississauga, so I took the GO train home, and I did the whole time. I'm like, why didn't I just do some more research or just Google some things?
Well, it's like you didn't know what you didn't know, right?
I didn't know what I didn't know. Yeah. I didn't know that. I mean, I'm there now, so I guess. And now I know.
Have you ever seen shows at YPT, or was
I hadn't even seen a show at YPT. So that's one of the things that he said. He was like, "Well, you should see a show. So if you want to come to one of our our teacher previews, you send me an email. I'll get you tickets." And I did that. I went and I started seeing their shows, and that's so important. Is seeing the shows. Like, as soon as I met with Philip, every single Obsidian show after that I was at, I made sure it was I'm seeing their work all of the time. And then whenever I go to YPT, it was just that was just so important because the people are there. Yeah. You say hi, what's up, how's it going? You don't have to have a full-on conversation with them about their show on opening night. It's probably not the best idea, but they know you're there, and they're like, oh yeah, that's nice of Luke to come and see our work, and and then, because people can't offer you work if they don't know you exist.
Right. It's true.
If they don't know that you're an option. Yeah. So, I think a lot of the opportunities I've gotten now, it's just because I present myself as an option.
Yeah. I personally have a soft spot for YPT because years ago when I was how old was I? I might have been 16. I don't know if they still do their summer school.
Yeah.
Their July.
Yeah, their summer drama camp.
I did that. I was I think it was the July one year when I was 16. And it was completely formative. It was there are some people that I met there that I still know, and I still remember the crappy little show that we made and stuff like that, but it was really formative. So it's one of those
I wish I did YPT, because when I was a kid, I played soccer. I did soccer. I played in school. I played football. I played volleyball. I did track I did a lot of sports before I actually got into theater.
Yeah.
So I don't think my parents knew. I think if they knew that now I was gonna become this theater person, then they would have signed me up for something like that. But I was just I like sports and math, and they were like, okay, let's do that.
It's too bad because that program is just this great.
Oh, it's fantastic! It's even now I'm seeing I'm meeting people and they're well, we worked for YPT. I went to camp there. I didn't. I feel left out. I feel left out.
You shouldn't feel left out. You had sports and stuff. Which a lot of actors are
I had sports.
I wish I had sports.
And I still play sports. I play soccer twice a week still.
Nice.
It's it's so important that I get to kick a ball really hard, at least twice a week.
You are still working with Obsidian as well, right?
You're
on the website, so I'm not sure if you actually are. Or...
I'm on the website because I haven't taken myself off the website.
Okay.
Well, so what happened? I got in a Metcalf internship. I applied with Obsidian, so I did their apprenticeship program last year around the same time actually. and I did that in producing specifically, and I was working with Tanya Senawarotney there, and then I switched. I did a double apprenticeship, so I switched, and I actually was at YPT in their education department, working with the drama school, doing an apprenticeship there. And then I really liked the relationship that was happening with Obsidian, and I felt like there was still more for me to learn there in terms of like more general management versus producing. So we talked to Philip and Tanya. We put together a Metcalf application for their program there. We got it, and the plan was that I was just going to be at Obsidian for the full year. Life happens. Tanya got a wonderful position at Soul Pepper. Congratulations, Tanya. She's killing over there. And then we kind of had to reconfigure what my internship was. I was then working kind of under Philip at the time, but then he is right now in Shaw. He's in Niagara-on-the-Lake directing.
Right.
So when Philip was slated to go, like we worked really hard with Metcalf. Metcalf did a really good job about it, Michael Trent there, and making sure that I would still have a place, and that because you plan for the funding that you're getting for this amount of time, and because I had that relationship with YPT, but I was in the YPT in the education department, and getting a chance to work with Nancy Webster, I thought was going to be great, and Philip highly recommended her as well. So we split it, and when Philip took off to Shaw, I'm now a YPT finishing that same Metcalf internship. But I still have a strong relationship with Obsidian. I think that there is a future with Obsidian, I believe, but I got to do one thing at a time. So, but I'm still on the website.
Which is why I was asking you about it. But when I don't know how long you spent doing what you were doing at Obsidian, but are there different things that you're learning that are the differences between the YPT experience and the Obsidian experience?
It's so different, and I'm it's the perfect pairing for me because the kind of work the quality of the work is all the two companies that do just high quality work, and I love it, and I'm so lucky to have worked with both of them. But completely different audiences. The size, the scale. I mean, you're going from a non-venued company that's been around for going on 17 years to a venued company that's been going around for nearly 52 years. A staff of 40 versus a staff of sometimes 4. It's just there are different. There are different things I have to do, and there's different responsibilities, and sometimes with YPT, it's navigating all of these different departments and kind of having my feet in all these different places, but overseeing everything. And then with Obsidian, it was just doing everything. But in a way that makes sense for your company, and really Obsidian is a lot of going to bat for Obsidian, going to bat for these artists, and really making sure that your voices are heard when you're competing with some of these larger companies. And then YPT is providing spaces for younger artists, for children, and everybody to explore, and really that building is so vibrant and full of life and art all of the time. I couldn't have just imagined a better pairing of places. It's great.
It's you've got YPT, which is so important for not just introducing theater to a young audience, but for introducing theater to the future of theater, right? People who are gonna do stuff in theater. But then I didn't actually realize that Obsidian had only 17 years. For some reason, I thought that Obsidian had been around longer, because I've been hearing the name for so long. I just sort of assumed that they've been there forever. But no companies like that. Most companies are not that old right now.
Right? Yeah. No. They've been doing a good job at just being out in the community, and I mean Obsidian does good work, and that's what people know Obsidian, because they're no, I saw that when they finally see an Obsidian show, they're oh my gosh, this is great. Why haven't I been seeing more shows?
I'm gonna bring up the thing that I think keeps some people who normally go to theater away, and that's because they're white, and Obsidian produces
100%
theater that is centered around the African diaspora.
But most of our audience is white.
Really? Because I think a lot of people think, oh, it's a show for a show for me. But that's like one of those things that people who don't know,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So what, like
especially when we do Master Herald at the Toronto Centre for the Arts, up in North York, mostly white, majority, 100%. You're still seeing more black people than you are at other shows in the city. Like definitely more black people, but still mostly white.
Well, I mean, there's that question about bringing more people into the theater who don't normally come into the theater, and not that like price of ticket is an issue for a lot of people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I maybe go to see one Mervis show every 2 years.
Right.
That takes scratch, and so it's like big theater requires a lot more money. And I know that there's a lot of people talking about. I've heard people complaining about how Hamilton in the U.S. that theater, which is that show is made up of such diverse people that the audience is like mostly white people, except maybe on the educational like Wednesday at matinee.
Right.
But like, how do we get more people into the theater who often think that theater is for rich people? Yeah,
and it's hard because it takes money to make it work. Theater's not cheap, and even with Obsidian, there's that line where it's like, we could be pricing our shows higher because of the quality of the work. Like people can come. People saw Master Herald and the Boys for $20 sometimes.
Yeah,
it was a beautiful show. Yeah. Paid $20 is a steal. I don't care if this is the 90-minute show. It's a great show. But there are people that want to come to your shows that are like, well, I can't afford it. And I think it's like there needs to be those corporations, those organizations, those people with money who can pay for other people in the community to see that. And some theaters are calling it outreach, right? You're applying for grants so you can have subsidized tickets. And you see it happening every now and then, but it's just, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's
because
tough.
It's that balance between like, I have to be able to afford to put on the show.
Yeah.
But I also want the widest possible audience to come and see the show. And that's tough to balance.
Yeah. And then if you're like, well, maybe I'll add an extra show, like an extra Wednesday matinee, but then you add more shows, and then you're upping yourself in the category, and then there's equity, and so there's also all these things that we have to navigate and consider if you want to make those steps.
When you're talking about going to bat for Obsidian and going to bat for those people, in what way are you going to bat? Like, how is that? What does that look like?
It just looks like, I think it goes for all non-venue companies. When you go to a venue and you're renting and it's your show, you want to make sure people go to that venue and still know that it's your show.
Right.
That you guys put in all the work. So sometimes it comes down to how you're dealing with the lobby space, right? What kind of promotional materials are they letting you put in the space? Right, because they're when you want to represent your sponsor, because your sponsor gives you so much money and they really help make that work what it is, and you want I want to put your logo up on a poster there, but then there's other companies like we actually have this other bank, but right, especially when you go to
that's got to be a tough negotiation.
And it just comes down to listen, we put in all this work, we are renting right now, we are bringing in new audiences to your theater. Let us put up this plaque.
I find it kind of shocking that that's even a conversation. They're like, no. See, I know you're renting, but this company gave us money, so your rental doesn't trump this. Like it's a strange thing to even
there's just like every venue, or the ones I've experienced, they have their own guidelines, their own rules, and they all vary, but it just feels like everyone's kind of holding on to this precious thing that's theirs, and it's like, but we're all just doing theater together.
What is that precious thing? Is that their space or their sponsor, or is it their audience?
I think it's their audience, their identity. I think it's the fear of being seen somehow in a way that they don't want to be seen. If there happens to be something terrible that goes wrong in our show, and somebody blames it on the space and not the company. In which case I think Obsidian would own up and be like, okay, yeah, that's our patron who kind of punched a hole in your wall. This has never happened, but this is just an example. But it all comes from fear. It comes from like, oh, I don't know, this is different. This has changed. Like, we don't normally let people put up. It's funny because we have these like easels that have these plaques on it that like say like Obsidian and our main sponsor GD, and in some places there's like, oh, like when I ask them like, oh, they're like, what do you like? Where do you want to? I'm like, well, wherever. But it's just, sometimes they don't even get asked the question because a lot of smaller companies who will rent, like a lot of indie companies, don't have that. No, so an Obsidian, a company that has been around for nearly 17 years, that has a lot of weight, although we don't have our own venue, comes in and like, we got this, and this, that have to go up. Yeah. They're not used to it at the same time.
Yeah.
And then they have to make exceptions for us, and then we have to, and that's when I'm on the phone going to bat for Obsidian.
Do they have stuff in their contract about that stuff?
Oh yeah, it comes up in contract negotiation, and then it comes up, and then we'll bring it up, and then it'll get tossed around, and then it depends on the company.
Yeah. What is, in terms of where you want your trajectory in the theater to go now? Here you're doing, you studied playwriting and acting, and you did the devised course, and now you're doing some theater general management and things like that. What do you want your theater?
It's a great question. Going into 2017, I was like, this year is going to be Luke's year of writing, and then I'll have like 2 main administrative gigs, and then I'm just going to write, was my plan. And I knew those gigs, there was going to be the Metcalf internship, and there was going to be Little Black Afro, and then I wanted to write. And then I was like, wait, I'm also doing this great thing called Dark Nights that I do at the Gladstone with Wayne Burns and Andy McKay and Joss McNeil. And that's just growing and growing and growing. I'm like, okay, so then I'll have this internship, and then I'll have Little Black Afro, and then I'll have Dark Nights, and then I'll write. And then I am now on the Toronto Poetry Slam team, which happened in the winter, and so then we practice, and we are going to go compete in the States in August. So I was like, okay, so then I have this internship, and I have Little Black Afro, and I have Dark Nights, and I have the Poetry Slam team, and then I'm going to write. And then I'm also going to play soccer twice a week, and then it keeps building up, and then I lose, like, I haven't had enough time to write this year. I think if there's one thing I haven't been doing enough of this year, it's been writing. But like, I'm able to pay my bills. I'm still enjoying life. I find a lot of things exciting. So ideally, I find enough time, and I find a way to schedule my life where I can do all of these things. The amount of time I need to do each of these things a week, which is. But I want to write more. I want to write more than I am.
It's tough to balance, like I have my relationship, my job, and my writing, and eventually there's going to be a show that comes out of that. So I've got like 4 things to balance. It's hard to balance that. Whereas you're like balancing like 8 things. And
then there's also a relationship in my life too. And it's important.
We haven't talked about Dark Nights. So what is that?
Dark Nights is a conversation series that started with Wayne Burns out of the Youth Advisory Committee, I guess like a year and a half ago now. And basically, we were in the YAC, and we were always trying to think of these like youth events to do. And there was it was at the Toronto Reference Library where we first had this kind of conversation where we're like, what is the thing? Like, what do we want? What do we value? And we talked about how we like talking to people who aren't far off from our age, who are being successful, and like sometimes it's hard to look up. Like me looking all the way up to Philip Aiken, like there are so many steps in between me and Philip Aiken. Where are those steps? Why can't I see those steps? Why can't I have a conversation with the steps between me and Philip Aiken? Also hang out with Philip Aiken and learn from him too, but I want to know all the other steps. So then we came with this idea of creating a space where we bring in artists who are under 30 or around 30 who are doing what they love, who are making somewhat of a career out of it, or finding a way that they can live their life pay their bills, do their art, and be somewhat happy, and also kick butt in what they're doing. And we want to talk to those people and bring in other people who want to talk to those people and just like have an honest conversation. And we can also talk about your fears, because we understand that it's not perfect, but that doesn't mean it's not impossible.
Yeah.
So the first year we did it Theatre Ontario, we pitched the idea to them since it was from the YC. They gave us some seed money. We started it at the theatre center. We were having the conversations there every other Monday, which was so exhausting.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Which and that's right. That's why it was called Dark Nights, because it was like theater's dark on Monday. So it's, we should be able to get everybody out, but every other theater-related event happens on Mondays.
Of course it does.
Like the Bellows happens on Mondays, Wrecking Ball happens on Mondays, all these pop-up conversations about diversity happen on Mondays.
Everything happens on Mondays, of course, yeah.
So we did it a year of that, and we saw all kinds of artists. Wayne and I both came from a theater background, but we had musicians, we had illustrators, we had fashion designers, we had dancers, we had cinematographers, we had everything come in, and we went out in the community and found these people, saw their work, thought they were cool, brought them in. And then after the first year, we were like, okay, that was a lot. But we want to keep doing it. So Annie and Joss were two people who kept coming back and expressing interest in Dark Nights, and we're like, we want to help make it better with you. So we brought them on the team. We all sat down, had a hard look at Dark Nights. We're like, how can we make it better? Okay, not every other Monday. We're going to do one Wednesday night, once a month. We're going to give us more time to get to know these artists. We're going to put more information out there in social media, on our website, so people can also get to know the artists and prepare for the conversation. We're going to go to the Gladstone now, so now we have a permanent residency in room 207 at the Gladstone Hotel, which is great. We changed the time a bit. We just tightened everything, and already we're seeing a difference in our attendance. We're seeing a difference in the quality of conversations and the kind of artists we're bringing in this year. It's a great lineup. We have Haley McGee coming in tomorrow night, and we're live streaming Dark Nights now for the first time. And so many people in our first year were like, "Have you guys tried live streaming?" Are you
doing Periscope? Or are you doing like Facebook Live?
We're gonna do a Facebook Live. Okay. We're gonna try. I think it's gonna be trial and error. First up to bat, Facebook Live. And then we'll probably we'll see how that goes. We'll get some feedback from people. We're always open to feedback too. We also don't think that what we're doing is perfect. And then we might give Periscope a try. People have also been like, oh, you should make it a podcast. But we really want people to be there in the room with us.
That is. Podcast is great for those people who can't, speaking podcast.
Right, on a podcast.
Yeah. It's great for those people who can't be there, but I totally get, what you get out of being in that room and being able to participate. But on the other side, if you release it, a week later or something like that, not right after, but you also, so there's the impetus to be there in the room, but also include all of the questions that people have. So it's not just this person's talking, then we stop before the questions start coming in.
Right.
Then somebody who can't be there, there's somebody right now in Winnipeg or Vancouver who can't be there, but would really get something out of it. And I am all about more Canadian theater content in the podcast universe. Would be amazing. So anything that we can get out there, because there's precious little.
Yeah, no, and it is accessible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think in order to, as Canada slowly defines what it means to be the Canadian theater artist and what our theater looks like, having more things out there could definitely help. So I think there might be a time when we try podcasts, and because a year ago we were like, we're never going to stream this live ever. And then now I'm like, well, everyone tune in live tomorrow night. Because you never know how things are going to change.
No.
So it's we're still growing, but it's so cool, and it's one of the coolest things that I'm a part of right now. And it's another thing that I wish I could give more time to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting you mentioned all of these things that as Canadian theatre artists talk about what Canadian theatre looks like and things like that. You also mentioned all of the pop-up conversations and diversity that are happening on a almost constant
What
basis.
is diversity?
I have this thing where I I know the importance of talking about it. I was at the what are they called? Oh, Bad Hats.
Bad Hats.
They did a
Yeah.
conversation. They had that, so I was at that, but then I heard like a couple weeks later there was a thing at George Brown College at the theater department there, conversation in diversity. It's like every time we turn around there's a conversation
with diversity.
But we've been having those conversations about diversity for like 20
for so
years,
long
something?
Since people could talk.
Yeah, I mean, everybody can talk. It's just like what we don't seem to do is like enough action on that. Do you ever get tired of the conversation, or
absolutely
like the conversation is important to have and it's good that we're having it, but for fuck's sake?
Like I'm definitely getting tired of the conversation, but like I'll still show up because I feel like if I don't show up, then someone else will, and I feel like there's. You look at the people who are going to these panels and who are on the panel, and you see that they're tired, and I wonder, I'm like, well, why are you on this panel? I'm like, well, because if you don't show up, then someone else will, and they might say the wrong thing, so I'd rather have you on this panel, even though you've been on these panels forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, and you're exhausted.
I noticed, when I was at the Bad Hats, it was an amazing panel.
Yeah, well,
but a couple of people were obviously tired of
Nina was exhausted. Nina was exhausted.
Nina is exhausted about the conversation, but she's willing to be there.
But she's there.
Yeah.
She's there, and she's so strong. I started tearing up. I started tearing up when Nina was speaking about, when they're talking about the funding and how, she's not really getting rewarded for the work that's happening. Sure, some of these other companies are getting cut money, but they still have way more money than what she's getting to work with, and she's finding a way to do the work.
Yeah.
And she's there and she's talking to it, and I teared up because I was like, this is so sad that this is happening, that this is the structure that we're living in, that we're fighting, and you could see that she's still fighting. So thank you, Nina.
One of the things that kind of struck me about that conversation was, Nina is the only female person of color running a major theater, like a venue theater in this country. And how do we get and that's I keep wanting to just say, look, guys, the question that we need, the question is, how do we make this happen? Why is that unique? Is it because the boards are made up of old white men who just want to see old white men in control of their theaters, or it's one of those things.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while. I mean, there was a time when there were none.
Yes, yeah.
So, I'm also I'm a hopeful person, so I think that we are moving. If slowly, but we're moving. But it's like any racial or just gender, sexist kind of problem that's out there, because we started off as an idiot world, and we are slowly realizing that there are better ways to live, and that there are better ways to treat people, and that there are better ways to deal with differences in the world, and it's clicking with people slowly.
It's really slow, and one of the things that I think that is a challenge for people is talking about race makes white people uncomfortable, and because it makes them uncomfortable, they prefer not to talk about it, which is an
or
issue.
It's awkward when they do talk about it.
Well, that's the thing. Is so I'm talking about this, and he's an artist of let's just
say it. Just say it.
And if you say it, the thing is, if you say the wrong thing, it's okay if the person says, I prefer this term, and then we go forward.
Yeah.
But the whole white people get uncomfortable, and so they don't talk about it, so they don't deal with it, and that's a problem.
And it's if you are speaking honestly, then all to you, and you don't have to like everything. I don't like chocolate. That's just the thing I don't like. Okay, I don't like chocolate. I don't eat it. I don't. If a white dude doesn't like black theater artists, then he doesn't like you. Maybe he's a little bit more of an asshole than I am for not liking chocolate. But but don't try to. I don't force myself to eat chocolate.
Yeah.
I don't go I'm going to get more money if I eat chocolate, so I'm just going to force feed myself chocolate. So don't force feed yourself this work if you actually don't want it.
It's kind of funny. Well, it's like maybe they don't want it, but chances are they also haven't
seen it. Right. I try chocolate though.
Yeah. The funny thing is, and I've mentioned this before, is that theater is the one art form that I can think of where you hear, oh, I saw a play once and I didn't like it, so I don't go.
So then I don't go see it anymore.
And maybe there's like some guy up there who's, I saw a black theater show once and I didn't like it. So I don't like black theater.
Yeah.
It's like, but if it's TV, if you see a bad show, you change the channel. You watch something else.
Right? Because there's less of a risk in like changing the channel than like finding the time in the night and going out for dinner and getting in the car and going and buying your tickets in advance and then sitting in the theater and then just, it's like there are so many barriers and you waste so much more of what it appears to be your time and your money if you go out and see a show you don't like versus you turn on things and change the channel.
I think what a lot of people forget is like when it's good.
Oh, it was real
it's
good.
It's so much better than sitting at home and watching Netflix.
Yeah, whenever I catch myself watching Netflix, I'm like, bad. I could be reading a play. I could be
seeing a play.
But yeah, it's like whenever I take someone to see theater, who doesn't normally see theater, I pray, I hope that this is a good show.
Oh fuck!
Right? Because it's like I don't want to take this person to see a terrible show.
You want to be the person who took them to see like a stinker. Right? Yeah, right?
And then they never come back. I want to know, like, I want to be the one who turns your life around.
It's like you want to know, like, is this show good before you take somebody to see it? But
100%.
Like, it's risk to be in that room, and maybe you're there on a bad night. You don't know.
You don't know. It's a big risk. So, and then I want to go back to diversity. I'm gonna give Philip Aiken another shout out. Yeah. Because he tells this to everybody now. Once he had this. And I think he was having the conversation with Leah Simone Bowen as well about the different companies and like diversity and about like referring to Obsidian as like a diverse company. And then he's like, no, it's a culturally specific company because if it's diverse, then it's like implying that there is like we are different from something that is supposed to be the norm, and now we are the other. Yes. But like really, what we're living in is a very diverse group of people where there isn't really a norm. You can go on the streetcar and you can see anything. I can walk down Kensington and see an alligator. Like I don't know. And he's like Obsidian is a culturally specific theater company. Fujian is a culturally specific theater company. One might even say that other companies are culturally specific to it. I don't want to... like, how many names am I going to say?
But, like...
Right? And then if that's what they're going to do, then that's what they're going to do.
if that's what they're going to do, they need to just, like, this is what we are.
Because, like, it makes me feel awkward when I see programming that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, you don't know this artist. You ever said, like, you didn't go and see their work. Like, like when I get asked sometimes to be a part of shows, to work with companies, strictly, I know because I'm black. And I know this because a lot of times they'll tell me, and I'm like, at least they won't say this is just, but they're like, we're looking to be more diverse and yada 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 yada. I'm like, okay, at least you're not trying to hide it. Like, but people who've never like seen me direct, write, act, produce, don't actually know the caliber of what I can do. But I guess some people talk and they refer people as well. But they're like, oh, I want you to do this thing, and sometimes I feel icky. But I don't feel icky if like I know the person, if this is a person who's like come and seen my work, who I have a relationship with. An example of this, Autumn Smith approached me to direct this new initiative that CanStage is doing alongside Shakespeare in Hyde Park. They're commissioning some new works, and I've been asked to direct one of them. And CanStage is a company, CanStage so white, everyone knows that happened. And if anybody else in that organization that I didn't really know approached me and asked me to be a part of it, I would have been like, "Oh, this is weird." But Autumn has seen my work. Autumn knows me as an artist, and I feel like there's an authenticity in that relationship that I value. Yeah. And I want to work on this because of Autumn and because of the relationship that we have. And I think some of these other companies need to put the time in to develop those relationships with the artists. Yeah. And then, because then when you program the work, everybody involved feels better about it. Yeah. The creative space is just, there's a better energy to it. And then the work is better. Yeah. Because it's coming from a real place. It's not coming, you're not forced to do it because you don't have funding anymore. Yeah. You know, it's like walking around all day in like really tight clothes because they were super cheap, and you're like, awesome, I got a great deal on these clothes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put everyone else is wearing these clothes, so I'm gonna wear them around. But don't wear them. If they're gonna be uncomfortable, you make the clothes look bad, and you look bad.
Yeah. I think that it's important that you know, the whole can't stage so white thing. I think that kind of stuff is really important to call out when a company is like, we're Canadian stage. Fuck it, like show Canada. You know, and it's important that we do call out companies that you know are
the fact that they're called, if they were called something else, I think they probably still would have been called out, but not as much. It's just because, like, what are you presenting?
Yes.
What are you presenting yourself as? Like, I think if Obsidian all of a sudden did a season where there were no black people whatsoever, like sometimes Obsidian does plays written by white people, but then they do an all black. You know, it's just like supporting black artists in always in design, in producing. It's not just about the performer or the playwright. There's so many other aspects to it. But if you're putting forward that you are Canadian stage, then what people see as Canada is different than it was when Canadian stage was formed.
Absolutely.
But Canadian stage hasn't changed.
Absolutely.
So that's the problem, and that's why they're getting called out.
But there's a lot of companies that you know, they're like that. They haven't changed, and they haven't changed to reflect the world around them. And we got to call them out on it, especially when they are Canadian. If you're going to do that, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
like I got called out when I cut my hair because other people were like, "You're a little black Afro." What do you mean?
Did you shave it off or something? What did you
got it. So I had like just rocking a huge fro for like, I don't know, something stupid like 10 years. Within those 10 years, you know, I was getting it trimmed and it was growing out. But then this past holiday season, I like shaved it all off. And the first thing people say, "Well, was it still called Little Black Afro? You didn't call it Little Black Shaved Head? You didn't call it Little Black..." It's so funny. You're so funny. I don't know. It's like when people are like, "Luke, I'm your father." I'm like, "Ha ha ha!" Like, how original are you?
You haven't heard that.
I've never heard that before. This is hashtag no fro. Hashtag
no fro.
I don't know.
It's like, I don't know.
Little black no fro.
You don't just change the name. Anyway.
No. I'll have to change the artists we work with to just have less hair.
Just less hair?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this year we're only working with
people with bald heads.
So
it's a new thing we're doing.
a man or a woman,
that's our next season.
Next season, everybody's shaved head. Anyway, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for talking with me today. It's been awesome.
Thanks for inviting me into this study pod.